विष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरून् श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण. Hope today the audio is okay.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So we will do the same thing yesterday what we did. We will start from where we left the day before yesterday. So that is the introduction, first portion that we saw. That is the how do we actually approach Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada very nicely starts the introduction by saying that if we want to take a medicine, so then we have to see the prescription or see the label and the directions that is given in the medicine itself, how the medicine has to be taken. It cannot be speculated by anyone and everyone. So the manufacturer of the medicine, so they give some directions of how to use it, or otherwise by the advice of an expert physician, so we can take a medicine. So and then what is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, so in Bhagavad Gita itself, it is mentioned how the Bhagavad Gita has to be approached. So the first thing that is mentioned is Krishna's Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is an important thing that we need to accept. And a lot of corroboration is given to that point. Krishna himself tells, and then Arjuna realizes, and then many other great sages, Asita, Devala, Vyasa, and many personalities, so they also acknowledge that particular fact. So then after that, we come to the point of seeing that how this whole thing is coming down in parampara. So this knowledge, actually, it comes down in parampara. So this knowledge has to be accessed in parampara. And the second thing is, one must be a devotee of the Lord to understand this subject matter. So there are different classes of transcendentalists. So transcendentalists means those people who are trying to explore something beyond matter. So such people are called transcendentalists. So they are trying to understand something beyond matter. And amongst them, there is jnanis, yogis, and the devotees. So the three classes of people are there. So the jnanis and yogis cannot understand Bhagavad Gita properly. So only devotees of the Lord can understand the Bhagavad Gita properly, because it's a great mystery. No, it is not. It is rahasyam hi etad uttamam. So it is a very, very secretive thing, and it can only be understood by the devotees of the Lord. So now this is the precondition for studying Bhagavad Gita. And now after laying down this precondition, so now Prabhupada is going to take us through the subject matters of Bhagavad Gita. So that's what we are starting with. So let's start reading from the purport. Just what is the Bhagavad Gita? The purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to deliver the mankind from the nations of material existence. Every man is in difficulty in so many ways, as Arjuna also was in difficulty in having to fight the battle of Kurukshetra. Arjuna surrendered unto Sri Krishna, and consequently this Bhagavad Gita was spoken. Not only Arjuna, but every one of us is full of anxieties because of material existence. Our very existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence. Actually, we are not meant to be threatened by non-existence. Our existence is eternal, but somehow or other we are put into asat. Asat refers to that which does not exist. So it's a very nice paragraph. So here it's Bhagavad Gita is meant to take a person out of the nations of material existence. So this is in many of our sessions we say Bhagavad Gita is the greatest motivational talk. Bhagavad Gita is the best psychiatrist, who can actually get a depressed person back into action just in, okay, so the Bhagavad Gita was, when it was spoken, it was 45 minutes or 1 hour. So just in very short time, so this piece of literature could transform a person from lamentation and fear and so many different emotions into positivity and great enthusiasm and things like that. So if we properly understand Bhagavad Gita and apply the concepts of Bhagavad Gita in our life, so definitely we'll be very, very strong and positive in our outlook. So that is the main thing that is mentioned here. So it is meant to deliver mankind from the nichains of material existence. So every man is in difficulty in so many ways. And similarly, Arjuna was also in difficulty in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And Arjuna surrendered to Krishna, and this Bhagavad Gita was spoken. And so in that way, like, he could able to come out of the problem. And what is the problem exactly? So the problem may take different shapes. For Arjuna, it was, the problem seemingly was his relatives were there in the front and he had to fight the battle. All the people will be dead and gone, and then with whom he will enjoy, and so many different things that comes in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He gives many arguments. So now the root of all these things is the point that Prabhupada is making here. Our very existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence. So we are actually, our existence is eternal. We are actually Sat. We don't need to be afraid of death or cessation of our existence and things like that, right? So we are ever existing, and because we are put in the environment of Asat, the environment of non-existence. What is this non-existence? This body is going to be existing only for a short period of time. So essentially it is non-existent. So before this body actually formed this shape, it was earth, water, fire, air, ether. And within no time, it will again go back to earth, water, fire, air, ether. So in essence, it is actually a non-existent entity. It cannot be counted as an entity. Entity means that which can be there forever. That is considered to be an entity here. And anything that is not there, not going to be permanent forever. So that means it is essentially non-existent only, right? So this non-existent thing, sometimes I've had discussions with people who are depressed, and sometimes we say we are spirit souls, and we don't have a death. We are going to live forever, and generally the people who are depressed, they say that is more depressing, because now I get some solace by thinking that if I commit suicide or if I meet with death, my problem will get over. But if you say no, I'm going to live forever, that's only complicating my problem. I'm not able to think of that particular this one. So why people are pushed into such kind of thought process? So it is what is that which is making their life so miserable? Why they are so miserable in their life? It's because somebody has achieved something and they are not able to do it, or they're looking for, nobody is caring for me, nobody is liking me, and things like that, right? So each one of them, we can actually give spiritual direction to it. So somebody is performing something nice and I'm not able to do it, right? So the very question is that, is life a competition? Is life meant to be fought like this, that to prove our superiority and our our monopoly and things like that? No, life is not meant for that. Life is meant for service to Krishna. Life is meant for service to Krishna. It is not, Krishna is not going to look saying, okay, Hanuman has been doing such great service of pulling so many big mountains and building the bridge, and a squirrel is also helping the Lord moving few grains of sand. So but the Lord actually looks with equal vision. So the Lord likes the love and affection that we are showing towards him, and not the quantum of work or not the way in which we are doing things. That's not a very important thing for the Lord. So essentially speaking, so only person that we need to please is the Supreme Lord, and he is not pleased by the quantum of work that we do. So no, the whole problem of somebody else somebody is doing good and somebody, no, I'm not able to do that much, it's gone completely. No, there is no point of that argument at all. And then nobody is caring for me, nobody's looking after, nobody is actually liking me and things like that. Okay, that's very nice. So that means we can actually turn our face towards Krishna, who's been always liking us, who's even if we go to the body of a dog or a cat, or even if we get the body of a pig and get into the gutter, still the Lord accompanies as Paramatma, right? So he also comes into the gutter. So who else is so caring? Who else is so reliable a friend? No, Suhrudam Sarva Bhutanam, Jnatva Mam Shanti Mrichati. So just by understanding this factor, if we understand Bhagavad Gita clearly, if we understand how great the Lord is and how much caring the Lord is for all the living entities, so then we can never even think of being depressed, right? So it is basically because we have forsaken this eternal relationship with the Lord, and we have put our thought process into so many unreliable, temporary, useless things of this world, and that's why we are getting depressed. That's why we are getting into so much of problems in the life. So if we apply the Bhagavad Gita properly, this one statement is really very powerful statement Prabhupada is writing. So our very existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence. So all that we are thinking that this will help me, that will help me, this person will help me, that person will help me, all these things are useless because all of them are non-existent. They are going to be existing for some time, and after that they'll get disintegrated, right? So Krishna and relationship in Krishna consciousness in relation to Krishna, so they are eternal and only they must be sought after, right? So if we are Sat, and with Asat we can never be happy. No, we need something permanent, and more Asat we are actually accumulating in our life, more and more temporary things that we are accumulating in our life. That many times we are signing an agreement for being miserable, right? So every material thing, every temporary thing that I think that this is mine and this is going to be there with me, so that's going to be a problem. That's going to be this one. Even according to the Vedic science, we see that even marriage, it's kind of a 25-year agreement of renunciation. That means I'm entering into this ashram and I'm going to live for 25 years with the family, and after that I'm going to renounce. That's how a man enters. That's how a man should enter into the Grihastha ashram, and at the right time he should actually quit the Grihastha ashram and either take sannyas or a vanaprasth or something like that. So it is not a very right thing to stay on till the old age, in the home, and then try to be a burden, for the people around. And in fact, if the more we become old, if we are very spiritually advanced, then people also will be very, very eager to take care of us, because everything that we speak would be of so much of use and so much of value for their life. So then it becomes very people around us also will be very, very eager to take care of us. And in case if we are just aiming at sense gratification, and people will also feel very, very disgusted to take care of such people, right? So people who are just focused on sense gratification. So that's why it is very important. And generally I've seen, in old age people, they have so much of anxieties, so much of tensions and things like that. So if at all, they would have practiced Krishna consciousness in their young age, and they would have practiced how to put their focus and concentration on the Supreme Lord. So then that's really very wonderful. So they can just exist, even whether it is pain or whether it is any kind of problem that may come. So they can blissfully pass through all of them because they are in Krishna consciousness, right? So that is the very important thing. So we need to establish this connection with the Sat that is eternal, and the ultimate Sat is the Supreme Lord, So, and we need to establish the connection with the Supreme Lord and entities who are in connection with the Supreme Lord. So the devotees of the Lord and the Dham of the Lord, the holy name of the Lord, and everything that is in connection with the Supreme Lord, must have, we must develop relationship with that. So that is eternal, that is permanent. Okay. Out of so many human beings who are suffering, there are a few who are actually inquiring about their position as to why they are, as to what they are and why they are put into this awkward position and so on. Unless one is in awkward, unless one is awakened to this position of questioning his suffering, unless he realizes that he doesn't want suffering, but rather wants to make a solution to all sufferings, then one is not to be considered a perfect human being. Humanity begins with this sort of inquiry, when this sort of inquiry is awakened in one's mind, right? So here, this is a very important thing. In this world, like people are thinking that I will fix things in this world and I'll, somehow or other become happy in this world. I'll do some jugglery and then I'll become happy. And then they think that, other people who are having these riches, which I don't have, so they are very happy. So they are doing very good. So this is all illusion. This is all, completely illusion. So if we personally ask every single person in this whole world, deep within you, are you happy? Everybody will have some sad story to say. So it is not that any situation is very happy in this material world. And in case if we feel happy in any situation, that is just the illusion. Actually nobody can be happy in this material world. Dukkhalayam ashashvatam. Okay. So in the Brahma Sutra, this inquiry is called Brahma Jignasa, Atato Brahma Jignasa. Every activity of human being is to be considered a failure unless he inquires about the nature of the absolute truth. So we saw this particular aspect in the second canto, 9th chapter, I think 36th shloka, where the Chatushloki Bhagavatam, the last of the Chatushloki Bhagavatam. So we saw that how a person must, the purpose of the human life is to inquire about the absolute, and what kind of inquiry, how much to inquire about. So like I know that in temple the Lord is there, so everybody goes there and worships, so that much of awareness and consciousness about the Lord is okay. No, it is mentioned that the Lord is, in the first sloka of this one, Chatur Shloki, it was talking about the Lord was there before the creation. During the creation, what exists is He only. And after the creation, what remains is the Supreme Lord. And then also we saw that how if we are able to see something in this world, and if we are not able to see its connection to the Supreme Lord, so then that is illusion, right? And then we should search out for that Supreme Lord in every sphere of life, in every aspect of life. And if we can perceive the Lord, Vasudevam Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. So to that point, we must actually inquire about the Supreme Lord, right? So it is not just inquiry, or awareness of the Supreme Lord, saying that, okay, he is there locked up in some temple room in some corner of the street. So that is not sufficient. That much of awareness of the Lord is not sufficient, right? So we have to understand that everything that exists is nothing but the Supreme Lord, Lord and His energies, right? And then we must engage in His service. So that is how much we have to actually inquire about. So this inquiry is considered to be the human life, human form of life. Otherwise, if you are not aware of this whole thing, then it's just an animal life, right? So, for example, if you're working in an office, you know that who is the boss and what is your work and things like that. So inside the office campus, if a dog comes and then it is just roaming around in the office campus, and it'll not know who is the boss, know what is how this company is running and things like that. He will just think that I am the boss of everything, and he'll be just running wherever he wants. And that's how the people of this world are doing, not understanding the Lord is the boss and we are all His servants, and we are meant to serve Him. So people of this world are just simply running about like dogs and cats, not being aware of why they are there in this place, first of all. Right? So every activity of human being is to be considered a failure unless he inquires about the matter of the nature of the absolute. Therefore, those who begin to question why they are suffering or why they, where they came from and where they shall go after death are proper students for understanding Bhagavad Gita. So this is the expectation for the people who want to learn Bhagavad Gita, right? The sincere students should also have a firm respect for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and such a student was Arjuna. Arjuna was such a very nice student of Bhagavad Gita, right? So he had this kind of an inquiry. So once the basic problem was solved, then after that he was inquiring about the nature of life and nature of the absolute truth, the Supreme Lord, and about the devotional service and things like that. So, and then he had a very good respect, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we can see that in many slokas. So he says that, what is that? Parabrahma Paramdama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Purusham Shashvatam Divyam Adidevam Ajam Vibhum. So he glorifies the Lord very nicely. You are Parabrahman, you are Paramdama, and things like that. So that's the way of accepting the Supreme Lord, right? And Lord Krishna descends specifically to re-establish the real purpose of life when man forgets that purpose. Even then, out of many, many human beings who awaken, there may be one who actually enters the spirit of understanding the position, understanding his position, and for him, this Bhagavad Gita is spoken. Right? So first of all, we need to understand our purpose of life, and out of many people who are awakening their spiritual search, out of many people who awakens their spiritual search, no one among them will actually be able to understand Bhagavad Gita, actually be able to understand his position and to render service unto the Supreme Lord. So it is not very astonishing. Sometimes people ask that, so many people join the Gita course in the beginning and then very few are left, why it is happening. So that's how it will happen. So out of many people, only few fortunate will try to understand a little bit. Out of those who have stayed back, only very few will be able to understand the actual signs of Bhagavad Gita. They have to be really very sincere, and really very prayerful to the Lord. That is when they'll be able to get it. So otherwise it is not going to be possible. Okay, actually we are swallowed by the tigress of Nishains, but the Lord is very merciful upon the living entities, especially human beings. To this end, he spoke the Bhagavad Gita, making his friend Arjuna his student. So now we see that this Bhagavad Gita was spoken. It is a great mercy of the Lord. This knowledge that Krishna gives is a great mercy of the Lord. So if we see in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions Tesham Tesham Satatayuktanam no. Tesham eva anukampartam aham ajnanajam tamaha nashayami atma bhavasto jnana deepena bhashvata. So the Lord says that if I become Tesham eva anukampartam, if I become very merciful, eva anukampa, very merciful upon somebody, so then what do I do? So then Tesham eva anukampartam aham ajnanajam tamaha nashayami. So I destroy the ignorance that is present in the heart of a living entity. And how do I do that? Jnana deepena bhashvata. So by lighting the lamp of knowledge, I destroy the darkness of ignorance. And that is the greatest mercy of the Supreme Lord. Sometimes people think, I don't have sufficient finance. If Lord gives me some finance, that will be a mercy of the Lord. If Lord gives me some other things which I'm not having, I don't have probably no children, or I don't have no good friends, I don't have this, I don't have that. So many things in the material world, there is endless list of I don't have things are there. So but then we need to see that real mercy of the Lord is the knowledge that the Lord gives, and which destroys the darkness of ignorance, and which makes us clearly see that we are not this body, and we are spirit soul, we are part and parcel of the Lord, we are meant to render service to him, and not for, no, we are not meant to render sense gratification for our own senses, right? So that's the clarity. So that clarity, somebody who gets, oh, that's the greatest mercy of the Lord. And after that, no, the person becomes really very happy, no, very, very happy. So yeah, so this is the main aspect. No, it is mentioned here. The Lord is merciful upon the living entities. Because of ignorance, people are, no, in so much of misery and distressful condition. Actually, they are not supposed to be in distressful condition. Within a moment, they can become happy. At every moment, everyone can become happy. But the main problem is they are being swallowed by the tigress of nations. And no, Krishna comes and he is very merciful and he gives this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. And if this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is there, so then no, everyone can become happy. Yeah, sometimes people argue, no, so many people are not having food. No, so many people are not having shelter. No, why are you just simply speaking about this Bhagavad Gita? Can you not do something for these people? So for their information, we can say the Goswamis, no, of Vrindavan, the direct students of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so they would not have food for days together. Sometimes they would have what is that, a palm full of buttermilk once in 2 days or 3 days. And you cannot find such a beggar, no, who's not even having one proper meal a day, or probably like one proper meal in 3 days. So no, we cannot find a beggar like that. And then they didn't have any shelter, so they were living under different trees of Vrindavan every single day, right? So if we see their position, they are the most blissful people. No, they are the most blissful people in the entire creation. And they had written such great literatures like Upadeshamrita, no, then Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, then so many books they have written, and which is just shining with devotion, no, which is even making the people, even now, after so many hundreds of years, even now, those books are, no, bringing about happiness in the lives of people. So then, no, then this whole point of people who don't have anything to eat, people who don't have any shelter, that is why they are suffering. No, you try giving them all these things, what they don't have, still they'll be miserable. You find some rich people in the world, still they'll be miserable, right? So the happiness is not going to come from the external things that we are going to have. It may temporarily give some satisfaction, it may temporarily give some happiness, but then that is not going to give us permanent happiness. Permanent happiness is only possible if we can attain Krishna, if we can have intense devotional service to Krishna. Otherwise, it is not possible, right? So this is the thing. This is the greatest mercy of the Lord. He comes and dispels this ignorance that no things of this world can make us happy, and he gives this knowledge that no, surrender unto the Supreme Lord and rendering service to the Supreme Lord is the only way to become happy, right? Okay, so now let's continue. Being an associate of Lord Krishna, Arjuna was above all ignorance, but Arjuna was put into ignorance on the battlefield of Kurukshetra just to question Lord Krishna about the problems of life, so that the Lord could explain them for the benefit of future generations of human beings and chalk out the plan of life. The man could act accordingly and perfect the mission of human life, right? So this is this is like Arjuna is a constant associate of the Lord. And in fact, we had seen this particular thing just before in the introduction, that we must be a devotee of the Lord. And in the advanced stage of devotional service, we will also know our specific position in relationship with the Lord. So here, Arjuna already knows that he is a friend of Krishna, right? So he is very clear about his relationship with Krishna. So in this way, Arjuna is a very great devotee, no, very, very advanced and Uttama Bhakta. No, even then, why he has to go through all this dilemma and so much of anxiety and depression and things like that? It is just Krishna's wish. Krishna is just putting him in that position so that he can speak Bhagavad Gita, right? So that's the primary this one. Otherwise, it is not that Arjuna was in that kind of position. It is like a drama. No, he is just doing that role. So wherein the Arjuna himself, he is an exalted devotee. He's a very, very Uttama Shreni Bhakta. Okay. The subject of Bhagavad Gita entails the comprehension of 5 basic truths. First of all, the science of God is explained. Okay, so now we are getting into the next section of introduction. The first section of introduction we saw the previous 2 days before. So that is the like how do we have to approach the Bhagavad Gita? And then the second section, till now we were seeing is that what is the purpose of Bhagavad Gita? The purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to awaken a person to this Brahma Jignasha, or the awaken the person to spiritual awareness. And for that, we need to have inquiry. We need to inquire about our existence. We need to inquire about who we are and what we are and why we are here and the purpose of life. And for such people who are asking like that, only few amongst them, very, very few amongst them will actually understand Bhagavad Gita. And it is by the mercy of the Lord. It is the grace of the Lord. And this is the greatest grace of the Lord, greatest mercy of the Lord, which by understanding Bhagavad Gita, like we can actually come to spiritual wakefulness. Spiritually, we can be awake and free from ignorance. And Krishna comes specifically to do this task, and he makes his dear devotee seemingly fall under ignorance, and then he teaches him so that the people in general can take advantage of it. So now Prabhupada is getting into the subject, the discrete subjects that are there in the Bhagavad Gita. So the discrete subjects of Bhagavad Gita are 5 in number, so that is going to be discussed here. The subject matter of Bhagavad Gita entails the comprehension of 5 basic truths. First of all, the science of God is explained, and then the constitutional position of living entities, that is jivas, and there is Ishvara, which means the controller, and jivas, the living entities, which are controlled. So Ishvara means, in technical terms, in the Sanskrit, it is controller. Parama Ishvara means supreme controller. And then that's how we can say Maheshwara means like the controller of all the demigods, like that. So in this way, like Ishvara means controller. So the Supreme Lord is Ishvara, who is the controller of everything. And we are the living entities, jivas, who are controlled by the Lord. If a living entity says that he is not controlled, but that he is free, then he is insane. Means he's mental. So that's what we can actually understand, that he is everybody is in control, under control. So yesterday also I was sharing this, that when I was just passing by in the street, I saw the police is catching somebody because they are not wearing mask, and they find them. And we see that they thought that they are free and they can free to roam in the street, but then they are controlled. They have to follow the rules and regulations of the government, and if they are not, then they'll be punished. And that is a way, like we may also feel that we are free. So, but then if we don't, even for a basic health point of view, if we don't drink proper water, or if we don't eat healthy foodstuffs, so then our health will fail. So where is our freedom? I cannot say like I'll do anything and everything and nothing can affect me. So at every level, so at health level, there is a problem is there. At the mental level, there is a problem is there. On social level, there is a problem is there. So everywhere, we are controlled. At every step, we are controlled, right? Sometimes the young children, so when they actually reach to the teens, generally they have this kind of this one. Now we need to have freedom. So all this while we have been under the control of the parents, and now we want freedom, right? So that's a general this one that comes. So everyone has that tendency, but then that comes out in the teens like quite a very strong way. It actually comes out, and they don't know that being under the shelter is actually very, very comforting and very nice. So they want to explore the world and they want to try it out. So generally, like I see the parents, they have a lot of issues with the changing of attitude of the children. So when they actually pass through this particular age, and it's generally the relationship between the parents and children actually gets spoiled at that point in time. So because the parents are still thinking that they are children, and the children are thinking that we are grown up. So it's a misfit kind of a thought process. So anyway, so that is the that is the specific thing that we can actually see, that everyone wants freedom, and desiring complete freedom is actually insane. Desiring complete freedom is actually no, it can be attributed towards being mental, being crazy, right? So we are always controlled, and better is that to understand that we are controlled by the Supreme Lord, who's a very lovable person. No, he's not a very erratic kind of a master. No, he's not like that. He's a very lovable person, and we can render service to him and we can be very happy, right? So the living being is controlled in every respect, at last in his conditioned life, at least in his conditioned life. So in the Bhagavad Gita, the subject matter deals with the Ishvara, the supreme controller, and the Jivas, the controlled living entities. Then Prakriti, that is material nature, and time, duration of existence of the whole universe, or the manifestation of material nature, and karma, that is activity, are also discussed. So this is Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, and Kala and Karma. So these are all the five subjects that are discussed in Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada will get into a little more detail now in the introduction itself, and then we will also see many other wonderful aspects in this introduction. That's why in the first session itself, I told this introduction is a masterpiece. This introduction is really very amazing. What is that? Digest of the entire Bhagavad Gita. So in fact, we have a separate book of this introduction. Introduction to Bhagavad Gita is made into a separate book. So it's just a small book. It's very, very powerful actually, which gives the essence of the entire Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so now where we left, the cosmic manifestation of full of different activities. All living entities are engaged in different activities. From Bhagavad Gita, we must learn what God is, what the living entities are, what Prakriti, this cosmic manifestation is, how is it controlled by time, and what are the activities of the living entities are. So this is complete definition of the entire existence, entire world. So the Lord, the living entity, the material nature. So this covers the most of the, as we had mentioned in the, many times we had discussed this particular concept, 7.4 and 7.5 of Bhagavad Gita. It's very, very important thing. So Bhumi Rapo Analo Vayo Kammano Buddhirevacha Ahankaram Amme Binna Prakriti Rashtada. So this earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. That's in one sense Prakriti, the material nature. And then the living entities. So that is the Apariyaya Mitastvanyam Prakritim Viddhi Me Param. Jiva Bhuta, the living entities. No, these two are the primary energies of the Lord, right? So the Supreme Lord has the material nature and the living entities in context of the material world. Right? So these two are primary, this ones. And then what is missing in this material nature apart from the 8 elements is the 3 modes of nature. So the goodness, passion, and ignorance, Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, and Tamo Guna. So based on that, these elements will act in different ways. So this is Prakriti. And if we know this thing, and then how the time is the factor which is actually driving all these Prakriti into different transformations. And those transformations is also called as the karma, the activities that are actually happening. So all these things put together, it is a complete definition of the entire world, its activities, and its functioning. So everything is perfectly defined if we understand this 5 things. So that is what is the entire Bhagavad Gita, right? Okay, so out of these 5 subject matters in Bhagavad Gita, it is established that the Supreme Godhead, or Krishna, or Brahman, or the Supreme Controller, or Paramatma, you may use whatever name you like. So these are different ways the Lord has been addressed here. He is the greatest of all. So the Supreme Lord is the greatest of all. Aham sarvasya prabhava mattas sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samandita. So the Lord says that no, he is the greatest. So that's a very important point. And the living entities are in quality like the Supreme Controller. The Lord is spirit and we are also spirit. And in that way, the Lord is Ishvara, Lord can have control, and we have limited control. We have control over our body. Some living entities have control over their family, and some living entities have control over entire nation, right? So that's like we are small time controllers and the Lord is a big time controller. And okay, for instance, the Lord has control over the universal affairs of material nature, as will be explained in the later chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Material nature is not independent. She is acting under the direction of the Supreme Lord. As the Lord says, Maya adhyakshena prakritihi suyate sacharacharam. So the material nature is working under my direction. So the Lord, no, this Lord is the controller of the entire material nature, right? So when we see wonderful things happening in the cosmic nature, we should know that behind this cosmic manifestation, there is a controller. Nothing could be manifested without being controlled. It is childish not to consider the controller. For instance, a child may think that an automobile is quite wonderful to be able to run without a horse or other animal pulling it. But the same man knows the nature of the automobile's engineering arrangement. He always knows that behind the machinery, there is a man driver. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is the driver under whose direction everything is working. Okay, so the Lord is the ultimate controller. Lord is the real, powerful, ultimate controller, right? So whenever there is something moving, something is acting, behind that somebody is there, right? The sun is rising and setting, the moon is rising and setting, and the seasons are changing, and the ocean is not crossing its borders. All these things is because of the management of the Lord. So otherwise, how will all these things happen, right? So whenever there is a determined and systematic pattern that is happening, so behind that there is somebody who's there, and that we should know as the Supreme Lord. And now the jivas, or the living entities, have been accepted by the Lord, as we will note in the later chapters, as is part and parcel. A particle of gold is also gold. A drop of water from the ocean is also salty. And similarly, we, the living entities, being part and parcel of the Supreme Controller, Ishvara or Bhagavan, Lord Sri Krishna, have all the qualities of the Supreme Lord in minute quantity, because we are minute Ishwaras, subordinate Ishwaras. Like we are small time Ishwaras that we were explaining. So this whole, this 2 pages, like what we saw now, of course, in the book, it will not be 2 pages. It's a small thing. So the 2 pages, what we saw now is that the Lord and the living entity share same qualities. We both are having the same kind of qualities, but then the Lord is Vibhu and we are Anu. The Lord is very, very huge and we are very, very small. That's the difference between both of us. So we are trying to control nature, as presently we are trying to control space or planets, and this tendency to control is there because it is in Krishna. Because although we have a tendency to lord it over material nature, we should know that we are not the supreme controller. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita. So we have some kind of controlling capacity, but then we cannot control everything. So this is this is the first 2 points, like out of Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala and Karma. The first 2 points, Ishvara and Jiva, has been discussed in this till this point in of discussion. And then the next paragraph starts with what is material nature. So that's it's going to explain about the Prakriti, right? So now we will kind of stop our discussion here, and we'll see if there is any questions till this point. Like we can take some questions, and also like I would, as I was mentioning before, the preface and introduction, and also throughout Bhagavad Gita study. So let's try to make some charts and connectivities and things like that for everything that we are trying to learn here, because it's a very, very important subject. So, and let's present that also to the group here. So various people can present them, or if you can make the charts and someday if you want to explain them, that will also be very nice. So it is very important to understand this whole sequence of things and whole. Bhagavad Gita is a very, very simple thing. Only because people don't understand, devotees don't understand the building blocks of the Bhagavad Gita properly, and then the concepts of Bhagavad Gita properly. Sometimes it becomes a little difficult for them to comprehend, put everything together and understand. So this introduction will help a lot, which will give in a nutshell a great deal of means understanding. Anyway, further we will also discuss. So is there any questions that devotees would like to ask till this point? Okay, so if there is no questions, so we will kind of stop today till here, and then we will continue again back tomorrow. And today is the last day of the Holy Name Week. So His Holiness Lokanath Maharaj had requested devotees to chant 64 rounds today. I don't know how much it's possible for the devotees. So we are all trying here. So that is one of the reasons I'm ending it a little early. So